Welcome to our deep dive all about acing that home care aid interview.
We're going to help you get ready.
Yeah, we've got some awesome career guides and interview guides and even a sneak peek into how RoleCatcher's AI can give you a leg up in this whole process.
It's really cool.
It is cool, and it's
Sure.
really awesome that you're interested in this field, a career where you're making a real difference,
Yeah.
day in and day out in people's lives.
It's demanding,
Oh, yeah,
but the rewards are big.
they are big.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here to help you showcase to those hiring managers.
Exactly. Your passion and skills.
Yes.
So let's just jump right in.
Okay, so let's unpack this career guide a little bit.
Yeah.
Talks about, the whole home care landscape. And I think that's something that's really important to understand before you even go into an interview.
For sure.
So what exactly do home care aides do? Because it feels like so much more than just, helping out around the house.
Right. It's skilled care.
Yeah.
So we're talking personal hygiene, helping with meals, making sure they take their medications safely and correctly. Okay.
Empowering folks who are facing challenges, whether that's from aging illness, disability, to live as independently as possible.
That's amazing. And I think that's such a key thing is like you're giving people that independence and that freedom
For sure.
to, live their lives.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about working in private homes, right?
Yep.
The guide mentions some other settings too.
Yeah, so hospitals, long-term care facilities, the environment can vary quite a bit.
Okay, so there's a lot of different settings. Now, here's what caught my eye. This industry is booming.
It is.
The guide mentions a growing need for home care aides. So that's got to be reassuring for anyone considering this as, a long-term career path.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So aging population plus more and more people wanting to receive care at home means job security and lots of opportunities.
Okay, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But of course, like any job,
Sure.
there are pros and cons.
Always.
So let's talk about some of the pros, because it sounds like there's quite a few. Yeah, so you've got flexible schedules. It can be personally very rewarding work. You're constantly learning and growing.
That's amazing.
So lots of pros. There's always a but, right?
Always a but.
So it can be physically and emotionally demanding.
Right.
The pay might not be as high as some other healthcare jobs.
Okay.
And you might have to work some weekends and holidays.
Okay. So being realistic.
Exactly.
Totally. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
So before we dive into these, interview questions themselves, I want to touch on something that could be a game changer for you, and that is RoleCatcher's AI.
Yes.
I was blown away by how it helps you tailor your resume. It's like having a personal resume writer.
I know, it's amazing.
It is amazing.
So their AI analyzes job descriptions to figure out the exact skills that the employer is looking for. And then get this, it actually guides you on how to optimize your resume to get noticed by those applicant tracking systems,
The robots.
The robot, exactly the software that a lot of companies use now to filter resumes.
Right, and it gets even cooler.
It does.
Because registered employers on RoleCatcher can actually search for candidates whose skills match their needs.
Yeah.
It's like having a personal recruiter in your corner.
Exactly.
That's incredible. Okay, so we've got the resume. We've got, hopefully you've applied for some jobs. You've got some interviews. Now we have to prep for the interview.
Absolutely.
Are you ready to tackle these questions?
I am. Let's do it.
Okay.
So we're going to walk through some common questions, what the interviewer is looking for, and how you can really knock their socks off with your answers.
Okay.
And we even have some follow-up questions that they might throw your way, so you'll be super prepared.
Okay, let's do this first up, a classic.
Okay.
Tell us about your experience in home care.
Yes,
Sounds simple enough, but I'm guessing there's a little more to it
there is.
than just listing your previous jobs.
You're right. It is straightforward, but don't underestimate it.
Okay.
This is your first impression.
Okay.
The interviewer wants specifics, not vague statements.
So instead of saying, I've worked in home care for 5 years,
Exactly.
you would want to highlight, okay, what were the tasks that you performed?
Yeah.
What types of patients did you work with? Maybe even a specific challenge that you overcame.
Absolutely. Paint a picture with your words and be ready for those follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Like, can you give me an example of a difficult situation you faced and how you handled it?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, they want to see how you think on your feet.
Okay, that makes sense. Next question.
Okay.
How do you manage difficult patients or situations?
Yeah,
I can imagine this comes up quite a bit in home care.
it definitely does.
So how do you even approach this one?
Well, remember, this job demands compassion, patience, and the ability to stay calm under pressure.
Right.
So when you're answering this, focus on your communication and problem-solving skills.
Okay.
And use real examples.
Okay, give me a real example.
All right, so let's say a patient refuses to take their medication.
Okay, happens.
It happens, right? So first I try to understand, why are they worried about side effects? Do they have questions about the medication itself? Once you understand the root of the problem, then you can really address it. Maybe you explain things in a way they understand. Maybe you involve their family, or you consult with their doctor about other options.
So you're showing them that you're proactive.
Exactly.
And that you care about finding solutions.
Absolutely.
And I bet a follow-up question to that could be like, okay, how would you de-escalate a situation with a patient who's getting agitated?
For sure.
Yeah.
They're checking out your conflict resolution skills here. It's
Okay.
not about winning an argument. It's about ensuring the patient's safety and well-being.
Yeah.
So active listening, staying calm, communicating clearly.
Those are your tools.
Yeah, your best tools.
All right, next up is a question all about safety.
Okay.
How do you ensure patient safety while performing tasks like bathing and transferring? I'm assuming they're really looking for you to demonstrate, your knowledge of safety protocols here.
You got it. So they want to know that you understand the potential risks and that you're taking precautions to prevent accidents.
Okay.
So shine here by mentioning your knowledge of proper body mechanics, using assistive devices, and fall prevention.
Those are important.
So important.
So things like using a gate belt for transfers.
Yes.
Making sure the bathroom is clear of obstacles.
Yeah.
And communicating clearly with the patient throughout the process.
Communicate, communicate, communicate.
Right, because they need to know what's happening.
Exactly. Explain what you're doing, ask for their input, encourage them to participate as much as possible. It keeps them safe and allows them to maintain their dignity.
I love that. What about a follow-up? Like, what would you do if a patient refused help with a task that was essential for their safety?
Again, try to understand their reason. Maybe they're embarrassed. Maybe they're scared.
Right.
Approach the situation with empathy and see if you can find a compromise. So could you modify the approach to address their concerns while still ensuring safety? Maybe involve a family member to ease their anxiety, show that you're flexible, that you're creative, and that you're dedicated to finding solutions.
I love that. And this is where I think RoleCatcher's AI can be so valuable.
Oh, tell me more.
Because their platform provides personalized feedback on your answers, tailored to the specific job you're applying for.
It's amazing.
So imagine practicing this exact scenario.
Yeah.
And getting insights on how to improve your response based on what employers in home care are actually looking for.
I know, it's like having a coach in your pocket.
It is like a coach in your pocket. Okay, let's move on to a question that I think requires some specialized knowledge.
Okay.
Can you describe your experience working with patients who have dementia or Alzheimer's?
Yes.
This feels like an area where experience really matters.
Absolutely. So if you've got experience in this area, this is your time to shine. The interviewer wants to know that you understand the unique challenges of dementia care and that you have specific techniques to provide care that's both safe and compassionate.
Okay, so what if someone doesn't have direct experience with dementia care?
Yeah.
How should they handle this question?
Honesty is always the best policy.
Okay.
So acknowledge that you haven't worked directly with dementia patients, but pivot to your willingness to learn.
Okay.
Talk about any research you've done, training you're interested in, or even personal experiences with loved ones who have dementia. Show them that you're ready to go the extra mile.
Okay, I like that. And a possible follow-up to that might be, how do you maintain a calm and reassuring demeanor when working with a patient who is experiencing memory loss or confusion?
Yeah, that's a common one. They want to know you can stay grounded and patient.
Right.
So talk about the importance of routine communicating clearly and using validation techniques. You want to focus on the patient's feelings and emotions rather than, getting caught up in correcting their misperceptions.
So instead of arguing with a patient who insists it's 1955, you'd connect with them on an emotional level.
Exactly. It's about creating a safe and comfortable space, even if their reality is a little bit different from yours.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Now, let's switch gears a bit and talk about communication.
Okay.
Okay, this next question can be challenging.
Okay.
How do you communicate with patients who have limited mobility or speech?
That one feels like it requires a lot of creativity and compassion.
It does. You're absolutely right. So the interviewer wants to see that you're resourceful and that you can adapt your communication style.
Yeah.
So think about things like picture cards, writing things down, relying on nonverbal cues.
And patience is key, right?
Oh my gosh, so key. It might take a little bit longer to communicate, but give that patient the time they need to express themselves.
Right.
And be ready for that follow-up question like, Can you share an example of how you've adapted your communication style to meet a patient's specific needs?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It is, right?
I bet a story about a time where you went above and beyond would really impress them.
Absolutely. So maybe you had a patient who could only communicate by blinking, so you created a system of blinks for yes and no. Or maybe you learned basic sign language for a deaf patient. The
Wow.
more personal and specific, the better.
Right. And again, RoleCatcher can be a game changer here
Oh, yeah.
because their AI analyzes your answers and provides tailored feedback.
It's amazing.
So imagine practicing your story and
Yeah.
getting specific pointers on how to make it even more compelling.
I know. It's like having a storytelling coach right in your pocket.
It is like a storytelling coach in your pocket.
Yeah,
Okay. I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
we have.
We've talked about, the home care landscape, the power of RoleCatcher's AI,
Yes.
and tackled some pretty common interview questions.
But we're just getting started.
We are just getting started.
So in part 2, we're going to continue exploring these interview questions, going even deeper into how to approach them strategically and what those interviewers are really looking for.
Stay tuned. We've got more tips and insights to help you ace that home care aid interview.
Yes, you got this.
Welcome back to our deep dive into acing that home care aid interview. I'm excited to continue exploring these questions with you. Are you ready to jump back in?
I am. Let's do it.
Perfect. Question number 6 is all about advocacy. Describe a time you had to advocate for a patient's needs. This one feels especially important in home care, where you're often the patient's main advocate.
You're spot on. It's not enough to simply provide care. You need to champion what's best for your patient. This question is all about showing the interviewer that you're willing to step up to speak out and to make sure that your patient's voice is heard loud and clear.
So what kind of example would really hit the mark here?
Think of a time you noticed a gap in care, or a potential safety risk, or even a miscommunication between the patient and their doctor. What did you do? Did you talk to your supervisor? Did you contact the doctor directly? Maybe you researched alternative solutions. The key is to show that you're proactive, you're resourceful, and that your actions had a positive impact on the patient's well-being.
So a good example might be noticing that a patient's medication dosage seemed off based on their current condition, and then advocating for an adjustment after double-checking with the doctor.
Exactly. That shows critical thinking, attention to detail, and the courage to speak up when something doesn't seem right. And be ready for a follow-up question like, what resources or support systems would you utilize to advocate for a patient who is not receiving adequate care?
That's a great point. It's not just about knowing what to do, but it's also about knowing who to turn to for help.
Right. Knowing about local advocacy groups, ombudsman programs, or even just navigating the healthcare system effectively can make a world of difference for your patients. Now let's talk about a topic that is crucial in healthcare confidentiality. Question 7 asks, how do you maintain patient confidentiality? This one's all about understanding the rules and putting them into practice.
So it's more than just knowing the rules, it's about living them every day.
Exactly. HIPAA regulations are there to protect patient privacy, and the interviewer wants to know you take this responsibility seriously.
Okay, so what are some specifics that you would want to mention beyond just saying, I'm familiar with HIPAA?
Yeah, think about practical steps like password protecting your devices, being mindful of conversations in public areas, properly disposing of sensitive documents. It's also about recognizing what information is confidential. It's not just medical records.
That's a good reminder, and I bet a potential follow-up could be, what would you do if a family member asked you for information about a patient's medical condition?
That's a tricky one. Be polite but firm. Explain that you're not able to share any information without the patient's consent. Because of those confidentiality rules, you could offer to help them talk to the patient directly or suggest they reach out to the patient's doctor.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about family dynamics. Question 8 is, how do you approach working with the patient's family or caregiver? I imagine this can be a really delicate balancing act.
It absolutely can be. So you're not just caring for the patient, you're supporting that whole family system.
Yeah.
This question is about showing the interviewer that you understand the importance of clear communication, collaboration, and building trust with everyone involved.
So talking about things like active listening, communicating clearly, and respecting everyone's role in that whole caregiving process.
Yes, and don't be afraid to mention your experience mediating disagreements or facilitating those tough conversations. Those are really valuable skills in home care.
Yeah, I bet a follow-up question here could be, how would you handle a disagreement between a patient and a family member about their care plan?
That's a very likely scenario. The key is to stay neutral. and facilitate a respectful conversation, encourage both sides to express their concerns, and work together to find a compromise that considers everyone's needs. You could also suggest involving a social worker or a mediator if needed, and this is another area where RoleCatcher's AI can give you a leg up.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Their platform actually lets you practice these types of scenarios and provides feedback on how your answers align with what employers are looking for. So imagine being able to fine-tune your response to this sensitive question and gain confidence in your approach.
That's amazing. It's like having a personal interview strategist right in your pocket. Now, question 9 tackles a topic that's becoming increasingly vital in healthcare.
Right.
How do you approach providing culturally sensitive care? This feels like a question where genuine curiosity and a desire to learn are absolutely crucial.
You're right. So cultural sensitivity is about recognizing and respecting the unique beliefs, values, and practices of each individual that you care for. The interviewer wants to see that you are aware of your own biases and that you are committed to providing care that's both respectful and responsive to the patient's cultural background.
Okay, so what kind of examples would demonstrate that commitment?
Think about times you've adapted your care practices to accommodate a patient's religious beliefs, dietary needs, or communication preferences. Maybe you researched a patient's cultural background to better understand their needs or sought guidance from cultural liaisons or interpreters.
It sounds like they'll also be looking for examples of how you've built rapport and trust with patients from, diverse backgrounds.
Absolutely. Being able to connect with people on a human level, regardless of their background, is essential in home care. And be ready for the interviewer to ask, can you share an example of how you've incorporated a patient's cultural beliefs or practices into their care plan?
That's a perfect example of how they might dig deeper into your experience.
Exactly. Be prepared to share specific stories that showcase your cultural sensitivity in action. Okay, ready for our final question for this section. It's a tough one, but it's also a chance to show your compassion and your strength. The question is, how do you approach providing end-of-life care?
This is such a sensitive and emotional topic. It requires compassion, professionalism, and incredible resilience.
It really does. So end-of-life care is about so much more than physical needs. It's about honoring a person's dignity, respecting their wishes, and providing comfort and support during a difficult time. The interviewer wants to see that you understand the gravity of this responsibility and that you approach it with both compassion and expertise.
So how can you convey that understanding effectively in an interview setting?
Focus on your ability to provide both physical and emotional support. Talk about your experience managing pain and discomfort, facilitating those meaningful conversations, and respecting individual choices regarding end-of-life care. Highlight your experience working alongside hospice teams, family members, and spiritual advisors to create a truly supportive environment.
I imagine a potential follow-up question might be, how would you approach a conversation with a family member who's struggling to cope with their loved one's declining health?
That's a very likely scenario. It's crucial to show empathy, to offer practical support, and to validate their feelings. You might suggest connecting them with grief counseling or support groups. Remember, it's okay to acknowledge that you don't have all the answers, but that you're there to listen and to offer support. And again, RoleCatcher can be a valuable tool in preparing for this type of question.
No one's honest to tell me more.
Their AI can actually analyze your response and give you personalized feedback, comparing it to successful answers from other home care professionals. Imagine practicing the sensitive conversation and getting insights that help you convey both empathy and professionalism.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like having a personal sensitivity coach. We've covered some really emotionally charged questions in this section. Are you ready for a slight change of pace?
Absolutely. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about the bigger picture, your career path, and how to level up your skills in the home care field.
I love that it's not just about getting the job. It's about building a fulfilling career.
Sure.
Let's dive into part 3 and explore those exciting possibilities. Welcome back to our deep dive, into building a really successful career as a home care aide.
We're in the home stretch now.
We are in the home stretch. We've covered so much already.
Yeah.
From really nailing those interview questions
Absolutely.
to navigating those sensitive situations that come up.
For sure.
But now let's kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Your long-term career goals. Are you ready to level up?
I am. Let's talk career.
Let's talk career. Okay, so the guide, it breaks down these typical career stages, like entry level, intermediate, and senior. And it even gives these like example profiles
Yeah, it's really
of people at each stage, which I think is so helpful
Oh, sure.
to kind of like visualize
Yeah.
your career path.
Totally.
So let's start with like the entry level stage.
Okay.
Kind of like what are those like core responsibilities?
Yeah, so think of this as building your foundation.
Yep.
You're assisting individuals with daily tasks, bathing dressing, uh, meal prep, medication reminders.
Okay.
You're also learning to communicate effectively with healthcare professionals and how to document care accurately. It's all about gaining those essential skills.
Got it. So then how do those responsibilities like evolve as you move into that intermediate stage?
Yeah, so you're going to start taking on more complex tasks like catheter care, wound dressing, even administering medications under the guidance of a healthcare professional.
Okay.
You're collaborating more closely with other providers to develop and implement care plans. It's really about building your expertise and taking on more responsibility.
And what about aspiring leaders?
Yes.
Like what does the senior level look like in home care?
So at the senior level, you're stepping into more of a supervisory role.
Okay.
You might oversee a team of aides, develop training programs, or even manage client records and ensure compliance with regulations.
It's a whole new level
Whole new level.
of leadership. I love that this is so helpful. It shows you all the possibilities.
Yeah.
But let's say someone wants to kind of specialize within home care.
Yes.
What are their options?
Well, remember those pros and cons we discussed earlier?
I do.
One of the big pros was potential for growth.
Right.
And that can take many forms. So you could focus on a specific patient population, perhaps specialize in dementia care, or working with individuals with developmental disabilities, you could pursue advanced certifications.
Yes, the certifications, the career guide mentions a few that I think are really important.
Yeah.
Like the certified home health aide, certified nursing assistant,
Yes.
CPR, and first aid certification.
Those are great ones.
These can really, I think, boost your credentials.
Absolutely. Those are just a few examples, though. There are many specialized certifications out there depending on your interests.
Okay.
And they not only make you a more competitive candidate, but they also demonstrate your dedication to professional development.
I love that. Okay, so let's think really long term. Are there pathways to move beyond a home care aide role?
Absolutely. So many home care aides actually use their experience as a stepping stone to becoming a licensed practical nurse or even a registered nurse.
Wow.
It's a fantastic way to gain that hands-on experience while you're working towards a more advanced degree.
So you could start as a home care aide and eventually become a nurse.
You can.
That's incredibly inspiring.
It is, and there are other options too. Some aides move into supervisory roles within agencies, while others become self-employed as private caregivers.
So many options.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The key is to really figure out what your goals are and then create a plan to achieve them.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been such an eye-opening conversation.
I know, it's flown by.
It really has. And I think we've learned so much.
We have.
We explored everything from acing that interview to really mapping out, a fulfilling long-term career path in home care.
It's exciting.
What a journey.
Yeah.
But it's not over yet, right?
No, it's just the beginning.
It's just the beginning.
Right?
And remember, resources like RoleCatcher can support you every step of the way.
They can.
From tailoring that resume to prepping for those tough questions to even discovering new opportunities that you might not have even thought about.
Absolutely.
It's all about being proactive and using the tools available to you. And we really hope that this deep dive has, empowered you to take that next step towards a really fulfilling and successful career as a home care aide. Good luck with those interviews.
You got this.
And remember, this is just the beginning of what could be an amazing journey.
Onwards and upwards.